What does success look like?
Is it too late for me to be successful? How do I get where I want to go?
If you find yourself asking any of these questions, you're not alone. Hi, my name is Andrew Augustiniak.
I'm Scott Ward.
And I'm Josh Wallace, and we have questions too. Or a question.
This is the Fueled by Why podcast. If you're a returning listener, thank you and welcome back. If you're new to the show, this podcast seeks to uncover the secret to success by asking not what or how, but why.
We invite you to join us as we explore the part each of us plays in our own success.
Each week, we speak with someone new and get the real story behind their success by digging a little deeper to learn why they do what they do.
From CEOs to homemakers, each has a unique story to tell and offers valuable insights, advice, and strategies along the way.
It all starts with why. Thank you again for being here and enjoy the show.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Fueled by Why podcast. It's Andrew and Josh. Today we are releasing another episode from a past season, and I feel like this is one of the episodes that led us to where we're at right now. It is an episode from April of 2020, and first off, wow.
What that feels like it was 10 years ago.
Oh, goodness, so
April
long
of
ago.
2020, COVID just starts.
Yeah, we're a month in.
Don't even know what's going on at that point.
Still wild. But this episode is with Pastor Ben Lundquist. He is one of Andrew and I's favorite people ever. Let's just say that.
He married my wife and I.
Yeah.
He was the children's pastor, youth minister, teen, whatever you call it. He did everything with kids and young adults at my wife's church. Now he's in Oregon. Now I believe he's running youth ministry for Oregon. He's a motivational speaker. He has his own podcast. He's just someone who uplifts everyone around him. And this episode is not necessarily business related, but I think it relates to everyone in their life, no matter what they want it to relate to. Meaning if you need inspiration with business, if you need perspective of life, if you need help in marriage, I think you'll take away something from this episode.
I agree. And Ben, simply put, grows leaders.
Yeah.
I think that's the biggest thing about him.
His podcast is Rise and Lead.
Yeah, Rise and Lead podcast. If you haven't listened to that, please go look it up. It's on every platform. But Ben has been a mentor to me and really helpful in my life in getting me situated and figured out where the heck I'm going in some tough times. So very appreciative of him and his mentorship, and really excited to see what everyone gets from this episode.
Yeah. So everybody, take a listen. Let us know what you think. We know you'll enjoy it, and we'll catch you on the next episode of Fueled by Why. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Fueled by Why podcast. We had some technical difficulties this morning with all this Zoom stuff. I was supposed to be at the studio. Farai, our production manager, was waiting there, but I thought we were just doing it remote. Pastor Ben's in Oregon right now. But hope everybody's staying safe throughout this weird, crazy time, sad time. But there's obviously a lot of hope and positivity to come from it, and that's what we're going to talk about today. But if you've never listened to the Fueled by Why podcast, we haven't been on for a couple of weeks. We took a little hiatus just because it's been so crazy, and a lot of people have been working at home. Studio was closed, but the Fueled by Why podcast it used to be called How I Built It, because originally I started the podcast to be based around entrepreneurs, local entrepreneurs, business owners, people to tell their story, because people's story is the more intriguing part about what they do. Most people know who we are, what they do. They know Pastor Ben's what he does. They know that I work in mortgage, I'm involved in putt tech, but they don't know like how they got there. And usually when it comes to motivation and stuff like that, it's all about the story, because then people can learn how somebody did what they did and the steps they took to get there. And so originally I had that podcast named that, but now I started to realize, like, it wasn't just about the business owner, the entrepreneur. It's about anybody and why we do things in life, and why, why we do what we do, why we have our families, why we work hard in life, why we take trips, why we go to church, whatever that is. And it's not necessarily the story, but it's the why that essentially makes for the story to happen. So it's the Fueled by Why is to go even deeper into the story. And so thank you to anybody who's subscribed and listens on Apple. Thank you for anybody who watches. Make sure to share and subscribe if you can. Leave a review on Apple so we can hopefully grow this thing and motivate others in their life to whether it be in family life, personal life, financial life, work life. Tell everybody some awesome stories and why people do what they do, so they can be motivated to do something else or find a why in their own life. But really quick, we got to give a quick shout out to our sponsors, and you'll probably see their image pop up on the screen right now. We have Seth Banda from Empire West Title. If any realtors or you have any mortgage transactions or real estate transactions, you always need a title company, so make sure to reach out to Seth and his team. Then we have Abe Bodden from Insurance Professionals of Arizona. Anything insurance related, cars, homes, dogs, cats, rings, I don't know what it is. That awesome chair that Pastor Ben's sitting in right now, like whatever you need insurance on, make sure to reach out to Abe. And then last but not least, Platinum Home Warranties. Every year, your home warranty usually lasts a year on your house. That usually covers your AC, your dishwasher, all that stuff. Make sure to reach out to Platinum Home Warranty. For all these vendors, make sure to tell them that Andrew Augustiniak sent you. They'll probably give a discount. If they weren't planning on it, they should now, because I said that they have to give a discount. So hopefully they'll take care of you. And then obviously this show is brought to you by the Augustiniak team, my team at People's Mortgage, for all your home loan needs. Refi, purchase, or if you just want to talk finance, let me know, and I'd be happy to assist you. Whether I help you with a loan or not, I just love helping people, and that's what I want to do. Really quick, Farai. All right, Farai was just checking in with us. All right, so today we are doing our first official, I'd say, Zoom podcast where I'm not in the studio. Yep. And today we have Pastor Ben. So Pastor Benjamin Lundquist was on my old podcast probably about a year ago, just over a year ago. And I felt like with us redoing this podcast, rebranding it to Fueled by Why, especially with what's going on in the world today, it was like the first person that I thought of that I needed to get on. And we talked a couple weeks ago, and I was trying to have Pastor Ben on a couple weeks ago, but man, life's crazy. Was Pastor Ben, and Ben officiated my wedding. We go a good amount of years back, and he goes even further back with my wife and their family. But Ben, welcome back on.
Hey, Andrew, thanks so much. And I just want to say I love the rebrand of the podcast and just the direction. So it's an honor to get to connect via Zoom. Not quite as cool as the in-person studio you normally record at, there in Arizona. But yeah, I love the ability through technology to jump on and have a conversation with all of you. And so, yeah, no, it's my honor and glad that we can connect today.
You asked me how my family was, and I was like, oh, we got to start the show, so let's start talking about to answer your question. Family's doing great. Kids are, I think Fitz just did his school this morning, this 30 minutes on Zoom, which is kind of funny. It's funny to watch the little ones doing Zoom class with the teachers because their patience level is little to none. And then
yep.
The teacher in Fitzy's class, bless her heart, she can't get the audio right. So basically all the kids are screaming and talking at the same time. But they're doing good. I mean, it's probably a little stir crazy more at home. I still come to the office most of the week just because we have just a small team and all of us, we're just kind of around the same people. So as far as we're not going out and seeing clients, no clients coming in, but everybody's doing good. Everybody's doing healthy. We're all convinced that we had this thing back in January because everybody had the weirdest bug for a couple weeks back in January. And I had never seen Brittany have like the cough that she did for weeks. The kids had a 105 fever for days and nothing would take it down. And at that time, it was just, hey, that's just a bad bug that was going around. And everybody's just like, if it was in Washington and the West Coast, it was probably here at the same time. I don't know how it was in Oregon. How are you guys doing?
Yeah, we're doing good. I think like a lot of families, we're in a new normal. School is now done at home and our kids are home 24/7. And I just want to give a shout out on the podcast to anybody who's a teacher or an educator. Thank you 10X for everything you do.
Yes.
I think we always had love for teachers, but now the love is exponential because we just recognize how much work it is to, grab the attention of kids, especially for 8 hours a day. And I can make a confession from my home. We are not doing school for 8 hours a day. I can tell you that. We're hitting an hour here, an hour there. But yeah, it's been going well. Our family's been healthy. And like you mentioned, Andrew, we feel like Corona may have gone through our school system here in Oregon in December, January. There were a lot of kids sick, but our family right now is doing really well. So it's, I've been just trying to maximize the fact that I'm working out of the house a lot more, still going to my office a little bit, but doing a lot of time with the family. The kids and I are making cooking shows. I just filmed a spaghetti garlic bread cooking show with my daughter yesterday. And we were editing it this morning and I said, how'd that go? And she said, man, that was a lot of work. It was a lot of work. So we did about 38 little video clips. And as she was sharing with the world how to make her spaghetti and garlic bread, she's 8 years old.
Yes.
Now we're having a good time. And probably the two questions I hear nonstop during the day: Dad, jump on the trampoline with us. When can you jump on the trampoline? And then, Dad, let's play with Legos. Let's play with Legos. So, but it's been good. So we're just kind of rolling with it. And, connected to your podcast topic today, just trying to stay uber positive and make the most out of the opportunity that we have. But yeah, family's doing good. Thanks for asking.
You're right. That's a lot of it is like, when can we do this? And even though we still have our work to do, and if I go home and work, it's they're ready to go, and it does make you appreciate, all the teachers. You teachers out there. And next week, I'm going to have my old DECA teacher on from business DECA's portion of high school on. So that'll be fun. So make sure, if you're listening, to tune in next week. But man, bless every teacher's heart, especially the ones for the 3, the 4, the 5, the 6-year-olds every single day. Like, you guys are awesome, because when you have a lot of little ones, it's tough to keep them entertained all day. And you got messes, then you got to clean up, and the house is definitely not in the best condition right now with everything going on. Have you noticed I got the quarantine due?
Hey, you're looking good. You're looking good.
No, it was a complete mistake. And then we were like, I'm losing my hair anyways. Like, I might as well just see what I look like. And it's definitely, I've learned from you, the key is, if you're going to have less hair on top, you need to even it out with the beard.
Yeah, I think you do the best with what you have, and I'm glad I got a little scruff on the chin, because we know, Lord knows, I ain't got nothing on top, but I got a little bit on the face, and so yeah, I think the nice thing for me is that when my wife and I met, my hair was really short, so I think she knew what she was getting into from the very beginning, and so she likes it. And so we're good to go.
Nice. Well, I'm okay with it right now. I'm okay with it. All right. So let's talk about let's get into the content of the show. But before we do that, for the people who haven't heard your background, we don't need to go too long. Like last show, I think we had was more about your whole story.
Yep.
But let's kind of let's set the foundation, kind of give everybody just a long story short view of kind of where you came from, how you got into ministry, family, wife, all that stuff, into where you are now, and then we'll kind of get into that'll kind of lead into the title of the show, the positivity, all that stuff.
Yeah. So to give just a real quick snapshot, my day job is a full-time pastor. And so unlike a pastor that works at a church, I'm an administrative pastor that oversees young adult ministry for college students and young professionals for our church network for the state of Oregon and much of Washington. So I guess I would say I'm more of a corporate pastor whose primary responsibility is really supporting leaders who are in churches and on university campuses. So that's what I do for my official job. And then on the side, I've got a real passion for leadership development. So I do quite a bit of leadership consulting on the side, and then, some public speaking to schools, universities, corporate groups, a lot about identity, worth, value, finding your purpose, leading better. So I just kind of do that as doors open up. And then I launched a podcast last fall that's all about leadership. So yeah, that's kind of what occupies the majority of my time, the ministry side, and then really supporting leaders through those different platforms. And my wife's name is Kim. She's a nurse. We met when I was going to college out in Tennessee, and she's from Nashville.
Great city.
Nashville, country music capital. But she's from Nashville, and I was an East Coast mutt. My dad was in hospital work, so I've lived all over the East Coast, but call Portland, Oregon home. And then I've got 2 kids, a little 10-year-old boy named Koa, and an 8-year-old daughter, the one I was making that cooking show with. Her name is Remy, and she's 8. But that's kind of a snapshot of, a lot of ministry. And then my focus is really on that supporting leaders through a bunch of different platforms.
You started, or I met you back when you were at Camelback Church, doing a lot with the youth, and obviously you do a lot with youth. How did that develop into the leadership training and all that stuff? Because you originally moved to Oregon to be the youth pastor there, I believe, correct?
Yeah, to be a young adult pastor.
So yeah. How did you start finding the passion for the leadership side? Was it from the youth and seeing that there was a need for that in the youth, and then obviously probably in adult life too, for people who didn't get the leadership training? Or how did that develop from working primarily with youth?
Yeah, I think the passion that I've got for helping launch leaders well, helping leaders expand their impact, I think it really grew out of 2 chapters of my life. And one of the chapters was just the personal struggle that I had with wanting to figure out my career in college, my major, my calling, what am I going to do with my life? And if anybody's listening to your podcast, Andrew, maybe somebody can relate. I had close to 10 different majors in college and just had so much struggle trying to figure out what was I supposed to be doing with my life. And I think there was this tension of, I hadn't always been a great student, but I had a real passion to make an impact, to have my life count. And so there was just trying to figure out, what am I supposed to be doing? So I think I always had a passion to come alongside people who had a similar journey that I had. And I meet people all the time that are struggling to try to figure out, what am I on this earth to do? How am I going to make the biggest impact that I can with my life? So part of that leadership passion grew out of my own struggle. And then I think with the ministry, so much of what you do in ministry is working with people to make an impact on individuals, churches, and communities. And so when you look at leadership, leadership is influence. And so I think ministry is such a great laboratory for leadership, because the hope of being involved in ministry is impact. And so I think over time, I just begin to dive in, like, how do we impact the community more? How do we impact the school more? How do we help high school students to be more confident, so many of them will stop taking their own lives and they can understand that they have worth and value and purpose? So I think out of my own struggle, and then out of that ministry journey of wanting to maximize the impact on the community, I just kind of grew this passion for leadership. And when you begin to look at that topic, I mean, leadership is it's in your marriage, it's in your family, it's the way you engage with your kids, it's in your marketplace, whatever you call your job, it's everywhere. And I would make this statement: everything rises and falls on leadership. Everything does. A marriage will rise and fall on how well that marriage is led. As kids grow up, their confidence or lack of confidence rises and falls on the leadership of their parents and that tribe that comes around those kids. And when you look at a business, whether it's realty, mortgages, whatever it is, a business will rise and fall on leadership. You know, how well is that business being led? And so I think, that was kind of how I leaned into that topic, and I just love it. Like, you can't ask me too many questions about that, because I'll just start rolling.
No, it's good. I love the rolling. Keep the rolling.
I love the conversation of helping people to recognize that they can make so much impact with their life. And how do you come alongside people to help them understand, their gifts and their abilities, and how can they maximize, their platforms of influence. And I know you're a big leadership guy too. And I really have always appreciated how you lead your marriage and your young family and your business. So I think we got a lot in common on that conversation piece.
Yeah, man. I mean, those are powerful words. And I think and even just you saying that, everybody needs that reminder, because it's so easy to get stuck in everyday life, or it's so easy in marriage and in business to get stuck in just the constant, to where you're not growing. And if you're not growing, then you're probably going to go backwards. And that happens in marriage, and especially in crazy times. Like, even just you saying that's a big reminder, even for me, because we'll have weeks where we get kind of stale in a way in life, because things just get so crazy. And especially right now in this situation, I think people need that reminder that, not just for those words to get through whatever situation they may be having in life, whether it be this being affected economically or stuff like that. I think it's important to remind yourself and have those reminders, whether it be listening to sermons or reading books, or even just following you on Instagram for that reminder, which, if you don't follow Ben, make sure to follow him on Instagram. But it's those little things that just kind of keep fueling and hopefully keep growing, because you're so right. I mean, everything either falls or grows on leadership, just like a plant. If that plant isn't growing from a certain standpoint, it's probably going to start dying and shriveling up. And I think that's just something that everybody needs to be reminded of. So when it comes to leadership, or anybody who is just being lost in that situation, like, what do you, since you went through it, as far as finding your major and going through 10 majors and kind of like it almost finding you in a way, like what advice do you have for that individual who maybe, it's 2020, they graduated college 4 years ago, they're still struggling to figure out their purpose in life. What would you say to them?
Yeah, I think that's that's a huge conversation. But there are a couple things that I would share. For me, I want to be a better leader at 70 than I am right now. And I don't know if you may have seen Andrew on social media a couple years ago, but I think Justin Bieber got a tattoo, which is not surprising because he's got a couple, but he got a tattoo that said better at 70. And so for me, the commitment to being a better leader, that's a lifelong commitment. Like that, as long as I'm alive, I want to continue growing as a leader and as an influencer. And the reason I want to grow, it's not self-serving, but I want to grow so I can better serve the people around me, so I can better serve my wife, so I can better serve my kids, my tribe, those that you're mentoring. So I want to keep improving. Here's what I would say. A couple things to that. I would say that it's really going to be hard to discover your calling purpose and your assignment if you're not in a healthy place. And so I would say for anybody who wants clarity on their purpose, they want to make an impact with their life, they're listening to your podcast, Andrew, and they're saying, that is me. Like, I want to get clarity and start living in my purpose. I would say right off the bat, you have to lead yourself well. Like, it's not optional. You will not be able to live out your purpose if the cup of your life is half empty. It's not going to be possible. So I'd say first step is recognizing that the hardest person you're ever going to lead is you. The hardest person, Andrew, that I ever lead is me. Why? Because I overextend. I say yes to too much. I cut corners. I measure my success often by my intentions instead of the results that I'm producing. And I tell myself, well, hey, at least I tried. But you think about this, in the business world, trying gets you fired. Often, it's about, what are you producing with your life? So all that to say, you got to lead yourself well. And I would just encourage anybody, decide today what areas of your life you want to grow, whether that's physically, spiritually, with your family, with your leadership. Decide what areas you want to grow, write those areas down on a piece of paper, and then just put a little commitment by each one of those categories. Like, I'm going to commit to continue growing the intimacy that I have with my wife, or I'm going to continue growing in being an engaged dad, or I'm going to continue growing my business to that next level, and write a little commitment down. And then simply put, just build a simple system for every area of your life that you want to grow. And I'll give you an example. If somebody said, hey, I want to grow as a leader, I would ask the question, well, if you want to grow as a leader, what do you need to do every day, every week, every month, every 6 months, and every year to make sure you can guarantee you're going to grow as a leader? So for me, that means I listen to at least a podcast a day, sometimes 3 to 5 podcasts. I might have a slight addiction. And I hope that everybody sees the value. Andrew, your podcast is awesome. So I hope people see the value in that. But
addiction to positive things is not a bad thing.
No. So if I was going to say, I try to do a podcast a day. I try to have a conversation with one of my mentors every week. So a podcast a day, a mentor conversation a week. And I know, Andrew, you got some great mentors that speak into your life. I try to read one leadership book per month. And then every 6 months, I try to build or create something new that I've never done before. So at least twice a year, I'm creating a project or an initiative that's unique and that's new. And then I try to at least attend a leadership conference that's really going to push me at least once a year. And so just kind of think about, when it comes to leading yourself well, what areas do you want to grow in? Put a little commitment down there, and then try to figure out what would a system look like to guarantee that I'm going to grow in that area. And I think that's part of leading yourself well. And then, Andrew, one of the absolute keys, and I know you're big on this with your life as well, is you have to assess. So at least once a month, just ask yourself the question, am what I'm trying to do, is that thing actually working? Is the system actually working? And if it's not, just feel the power to make adjustments as needed to make sure that you can continue growing, in those different areas. And so, just to answer part of your question, in discovering that calling purpose, wanting clarity on that, you have to take that step. And I think just take ownership of your life to say, nobody can lead me but me. I have to take responsibility of this. And I don't know if you've ever listened to the Jocko podcast, Andrew.
I think, all right, I think when we post this,
yeah,
you need to post your recommendations of podcasts. So underneath in the comment section, because I'm sure you have some good ones that a lot of people may not even know about. So when we post this, make sure to comment below with your choices.
Yeah, there's a guy that's got a really popular podcast. I think he's retired Navy SEAL, not ex, but retired. And it's called the Jocko Podcast. But he wrote a book called Extreme Ownership. And the premise of the book is you have to take extreme ownership of your life, which means no more casting blame on people, that you've got to take ownership, no more casting blame, no more complaining, that you got to own your journey, when it comes to leading yourself. And so if you're committed to doing that, you're going to have a healthy mindset, I think, where you can begin to look at, Andrew, what is that purpose or calling that I have for my life? And just 3 simple things I'll share. And these for me have been absolute game changers. And the ideas, the components are knowing your identity, knowing your purpose or calling, and knowing what your assignment is. And I didn't have clarity on those 3 components till a couple years ago. But the idea is your identity is who you are. So for me, as a believer, a man of faith, I look at my identity as a son of God. Like that's my identity. So good day or bad day, whether you kill it in the mortgage game or you have an off day, you never let how your day went shake who you are, because you know that identity piece. Mm-hmm. And then the second piece is that purpose or calling. And for me, my purpose and calling has really come over probably the last 20 years of putting myself out there, taking advantage of opportunities, looking at, what are my passions? Where do I connect? And I see my purpose and calling to share hope with people and grow leaders. That's what I see my purpose and calling is, that I'm going to do whatever I can do to make sure that I can give people hope and that I can grow leaders. That's your calling piece. Like, that's why you exist. And then this was so big for me. Then you have the assignment, and the assignment is, how does that calling play out in the current life season that you are in? And what I thought, Andrew, for so many years is that you had one assignment for your whole life. And I think I was thinking back to, you remember, Andrew, back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, when a lot of people worked in factories.
Yep.
And it was an expectation that you had one single job for your whole life. And then you retired, and your whole goal was to work yourself to the bone so you could enjoy that 20 years of retirement.
Yeah.
But the idea was you were probably just going to have one job. And I kind of thought for a while, I'm just going to have this one career assignment. But what I've come to understand is a person's life is going to have so many different assignments. And when I think about you, Andrew, with your amazing family, you had a different assignment when you became a dad. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Like once you became a dad to your kids, your assignment, how you live out your calling and purpose is unique because you're now you have a different assignment, you know? And so I think for anybody, it's just kind of looking at, who am I? Can I answer that question of who am I? As I look at trends in my life, what could be some evidences of my calling and purpose? And then what assignment do I have currently right now? And I think, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I think the thing that resonates with me the most, just because when you say it, I'm like, man, like I love all three concepts, but I think I love how finding your identity is number one, because there's so much emotion in this world, especially with social media and you know, social media brings out the best in people, but it also brings out the worst in people. And so, but in business as well, and I see it in my business as well, when people have, you know, we deal with a lot of emotions, and we deal with a lot of people who may not know a lot about the mortgage process or the real estate process, and things may come up because things always do come up, and they react with so much emotion, and they let it fester down, you know, when they're at home. And I do the same as well, but that's because I want to take care of people and help people and please people. And some days are better than most, and some days I may understand my identity better than most other days, and some days I may not. But and that's something that I'm still trying to find is my identity fully. But I think that's something that people should hear and really say, like, okay, if I knew my identity, like, I wouldn't let these things bug me so much. I had a situation last night where a client was texting me about this terrible situation. It was a terrible day. All the things went bad, and all I could think to say was like it'll all work out. Like, don't stress about it. Have a great night. It'll all work out. And the reason why it all work out, because at the end of the grand scheme of things, this situation that happens in life, or even the coronavirus and stuff like that, these don't make who we are. That doesn't. These are little blips in our lifespan that we'll forget about. I mean, we may not forget about coronavirus, but these little things that happen in our everyday life. I remember like 2 years into me being in the mortgage field, I remember like denying my first loan because something went bad, like last minute or something. And I remember like that time, like I thought that was the worst thing in the world, and it was terrible, and this person's going to be so mad and stuff like that. And in the grand scheme of things, I mean, I don't remember that person's name, and they probably moved on with their life, and they probably thought it was a very bad situation at that point in time, and the world was going to end. But the reality is everything, you know, this too shall pass type mentality. But I think that this too shall pass really should correlate to this too shall pass, because you know who you are and what you're meant to do, and you know your identity. And this is just a small little factor. And if people can know their identity, know who they are, know their purpose, know their assignment, then the stress levels of everybody in their everyday lives will be a lot less.
Yeah, I think you're right on. And, you know, there are so many people that I meet that put their identity in what they own, the material items they have. And we all know what you can have on Wednesday may not be there on Thursday. You know, we just know that's the reality of the way that our society works. So sometimes people put identity in what they have or what they own. Oftentimes people put identity in what people say about them. And you know, and you hit, I think, the nail on the head. You know, with social media, the lovers can be shamers overnight. And who's got your back on social media You go ahead. I mean, look at anything in Hollywood. You look at celebrities, whatever. But who's supporting you can be hating on you overnight. And so, if we're putting our identity in what people say about us, our identity is going to be so shaky. It's going to be confident when the affirmation is there, but when the hate is there, it's going to be gone. Yeah. And I know anybody who's involved in business, there's times when you feel like you're a rock star, and there's times when you feel like a failure. And there's times when your clients give you the greatest affirmation, and then you hear a little seed of something that just eats at you like, why would they say that? Or why would they make that offhand comment about this? So I think identity and what people say is just not really stable. And then also, a lot of us put identity in what we can do, like our skill sets. And you look at an athlete, somebody playing in the NFL, hey, it's great that you had this incredible ability, but one play, you blow your knee out, you're done. Yeah. And then do you know who you are when you don't have that ability, or when people are hating on you, or you don't have the material items that you have? So, yeah, I mean, I would never tell anybody, this is what you have to believe, even as a pastor, or you've got to find your identity in this place. All I can say is, for me, I've found my identity in the relationship that I have with God. And it's rocky at times, it's up and down, but that's where I found that identity for me that allows me, regardless of how the day has gone, to still know who I am. And for me, the identity piece is so big, Andrew, that I often will take out a piece of paper in the morning and I'll craft an identity statement, that may go something like this: Benjamin Lundquist is, and I just claim the identity and where I'm getting that identity from. And there's something for me about writing that down in your own handwriting that just gives me some confidence when I'm going throughout my day.
It's kind of the effect of, when people are taking, making like notes and cheat sheets for like a college exam, right? And it's the concept of, let's say somebody's doing, how you get one piece of paper for a college exam and everybody, writes in the little scribble, all the notes, everything they can fit into that piece of paper. But when they go to the test, they don't even need it because they wrote it down.
That's good.
That's so much and went over the notes. So it's that concept of just writing it down. And that's something that I could probably practice more. And I think the thing to take from this is is no matter what your situation in life, there's that one little piece of information, whether it be the writing it down and just putting that identity down on paper in the morning, or something, or a goal, or whatever that is. It's almost like you're telling yourself, and whatever that may be, everybody may be different. You might need to write it down, or you might need to just listen to that podcast, but you have to find what it is that will help you recognize that, so you make the most out of your day. And it's so easy to get lost in everyday life, and we're not, I'm not perfect, you're not perfect, everybody's not perfect, and hopefully that they can improve just a little bit. And if you improve a little bit, then hopefully the next day you can improve a little bit more, and a little bit more, and a little bit more. I have a question here. Okay, so what is your, with everything going on, we'll go more into specific, and with everything going wrong, going around, how do you, with the people that you say sermons to, or the kids around you, with the ministry or the leaders, what's your take, or how do you project, the light at the end of this tunnel? Or what's your personal view of what's going on, and how do you manage any stress or emotion, or how do you support others with what's going on in the specific situation of what's happening in the world?
Yeah, I think for me, it's about mindset, and it's about really being intentional. And I think there's a good friend of mine who does quite a bit of speaking, he has shared this with me. He said, you have to steward well the thoughts that come into your head, and you're either going to let some take root, or you're going to send some away, or you're going to focus on some. And so, I think it could be so easy, Andrew, to just get really negative with what's happening with Corona, and to not see that light at the end of the tunnel, and to be able to project negativity into your marriage and onto your kids. And I think about this, like the last thing I would ever want to do is steal hope from my own kids. Like, whoa, like that hits me right in the heart, So I think it's, it's about that intentionality and that mindset of being able to look at a situation in front of you and just know that what is in front of you, that this current situation is not the final destination. And I think you can hyper focus on what's in front of you so much that you think you're at the last chapter of your story. And if you honestly think that we're at the last chapter of the story with Corona, then you're not going to see a lot of hope moving forward. And so being able to look at your situation and recognize this is one of many chapters in a grand story, but it's not the only chapter. No. So now being positive and that mindset, it doesn't mean you don't confront negativity. It doesn't mean you don't deal with problems that exist. But I think when you look at leading, you're either going to be a dealer of discouragement, or you're going to be a dealer of hope. And when I say dealer, I think about a drug dealer, on the street. Like, all of us are going to deal something. Yep. And I want to be a dealer of hope. Like, I want people to walk away from a conversation with me believing in themselves more than when they came, and believing that, hey, things can get better. And so I think there are some ways that you can move toward being a dealer of hope or having a more positive mindset. And I'll share just a couple with you. I think, we already talked about this. You have to lead yourself well. Like, I'll just be honest with you. For me, if my cup is empty, it's really hard for me to deal hope to anybody because I got nothing to give. So I think, again, you got to take that self-care real serious. And I would just say, for anybody, take whatever step with self-care you need. That could be seeing a counselor. It could be changing your friend group a little bit. I posted a quote on Instagram the other day. I don't know, Andrew, if you saw this, but the quote said, there are some people who need to be removed from your VIP section to a regular seat. Yes. because they're not adding value to who you are and making you better. So do whatever you need to do to self-care to be the best version of yourself, And so apart from self-care, I think what keeps me in that positive mindset, a couple other things, is trying my best to operate in my gift, to say, like, I want to be doing the things that I am really good at. And I know, Andrew, with the way you lead your business, there are things that you don't want to do because you're not good at those things. You want to do the things that you are really good at doing. And I think that comes back to you're more positive when you're living in your purpose. Mm-hmm. And so always move toward the strengths that you have. And this is just a practice for me. If it's not one of my strengths, I'm going to give it away to somebody who's better at that than me. And a lot of times if I'm getting down, it often is because I'm operating out of my gift zone. Like, I'm not good at that thing and it drains me. Andrew, have you ever done something that drained you?
Oh, 100%. I don't even know how to click certain buttons in the system that our team does.
You get done and you're like, I'm dead. Like, I got nothing left,
But it's so true. I think, there's a lot of people who try to control every aspect of a situation. And what ends up happening is, it's like the same concept of staying in your own lane. Stay in your own lane, because you stay in your own lane and you go in a straight shot, you can just keep going as fast as physically possible. But the minute you start having to swerve, you're going to have to slow down. And if you keep having to slow down, you end up coming to a complete stop because you're not going in a straight lane. And so the people who try to do too much and try to in a way know it all and know everything about every system, you can't know it all. And it goes back to the jack of all trade, master of none. It's not to say you can't be master of multiple, but you can't, especially in business, you can't try to do every aspect, because you're going to burn yourself at one situation. And then you'll have more respect, and people will see you more if you are the master of what you do, because you'll also be more positive. You'll be happy because that's the thing that you enjoy doing. And so there's so many things that we in a daily life that I think, whether it just be in your work life or whatever it is, that you find yourself in certain situations having an emotional a lowering of your emotion, or a more negative feeling that comes when you're doing something. And maybe going back to the writing on a piece of paper, maybe you should notate when those feelings come, because then you can start to organize, what are the things that make you happy? What are the things that don't make you happy? And then you can actually see it. I think people get so lost. What if you take your concept of writing down that identity, but really just kind of breaking it down to, on a daily basis, what makes you happy, what doesn't make you happy, organize it, because then you can see it on paper and say, okay, I need to fix these things, or I need to cut these things out.
I think that's excellent. And I think it could be, I loved your analogy of, you can be so efficient when you're in your lane and you can be so productive, but it can be so easy with sideways energy that we lose focus on our lane. And that's why we build teams, because we can't do it all. And that's why we hire the right people, because we know we don't have every gift and every ability. So I think I am more positive when I am operating in my giftedness and my strengths. And so I love that idea, Andrew. Write them down on a piece of paper. What makes you feel the most alive? What would you do for free? When's the last time in your business or life a day flew by and you lost track of what you were doing because you loved operating in that gift set and that strength? So yeah, I think that's excellent. Being able to say, I'm going to be more positive when I'm leading myself well, when I'm growing. And somebody put a great quote up on Instagram that I saw a little while back, and it was something about direction is way more important than speed. Like, you're not going to grow your whole lifetime overnight. Just take your time, be consistent, be a person of growth, operate in your strengths. And then I think one that I've got to be reminded of with staying positive and that mindset is you have to stop complaining and blaming people. And when you commit that I'm not going to complain and I'm not going to blame other people, all of a sudden your mindset shifts from who's at fault to how do we make this situation better. And so being able to really just commit to yourself, I am not going to be a complainer. I'm going to try to make this situation better. And I'm going to, not blame, not complain. And I'll give you a great fast story about this. A good friend of mine took his mom to eat at a really high-end seafood restaurant in Atlanta, like multi-coursed, really good restaurant. She orders this salmon. And so mom orders salmon. The salmon is brought to the table and she cuts into the salmon, and it is extremely undercooked. Like the fish basically came out of the ocean onto the plate. So anyway, the guy that I know, he's just thinking, this is a high-end restaurant. This salmon's undercooked. So he calls the waitress over. She comes over and says, he starts to just kind of share about the fact that this is undercooked, and he's getting a little bit upset. Well, another manager comes over and she says, "Hey, sir, I'd like to take your plate back to the kitchen." And so she takes the plate back to the kitchen. My friend and his mom are waiting at this seafood restaurant. And she comes back in and she says, "Sir, I went to the kitchen and I ate a piece of the salmon." And my friend is thinking, what in the world? Like, who eats somebody else's food? And here's what she said. She said, "I ate a piece of that food because I wanted to know exactly what your mom experienced with that salmon when it came out." And she said, "We take full responsibility for undercooking that food. We're going to pay for your entire meal." And she said, "Actually, sir, I'm not the manager of this restaurant. I am the owner." So the owner took ownership, went to the kitchen, ate food belonging to somebody else so she could understand, and she made it right. And so somebody could say, "Oh, these customers, they're ungrateful, they got bad attitudes." But this individual said, "I'm the owner. I'm going to own this situation and I'm going to make it better. And how am I going to make it better? I'm going to eat somebody else's salmon to know what that experience is like. And I'm going to improve this situation, and I'm going to improve it by paying for this entire meal of what's going on." And I think there's such a shift, Andrew, when we have the mindset of an owner, because when you've got a mindset of an owner, all of a sudden it's about improving the current situation, not casting blame. Who's at fault here? Well, we're going to all own the situation, and we're going to look at how do we improve, this situation, and not complain and not cast blame. And so I think your mindset becomes one of constant bettering and improving of situations. And there may be a time when you got to pull an employee over, and say, "We got to have a conversation." Just because you're positive doesn't mean you don't avoid difficult conversations. But when you're an owner, your mindset is different. It's about making those situations better. And I think finally, I would just say last two things that I would share, and I'd be curious about you as well. Always have a vision of where you're going, and so you can, again, Corona is happening. And if all you look at is Corona, it can be really hard to be positive. Where do you want your family to be in 6 months? Where do you want your family to be in a year? Where do you want your family to be in 5 years? Where do you want your business to be in 10 years? And have a vision for where things are going, so you recognize what's happening. Yeah. And we don't discount the seriousness of Corona, but we also have an eye on where we're going. And so we can recognize the present without obsessing about it, because we're focused on where we're going. And the last thing I would just share is, within every crisis is opportunity.
Yep.
And this as well. You've got a real entrepreneurial spirit and mindset. With every crisis comes opportunity, and instead of asking yourself, why is this happening? Ask yourself, what could come out of what's happening? What's the opportunity that I'm missing here to innovate, to be creative, and to be able to look at a crisis or a failure, or you coming up against an insurmountable challenge and saying, I don't want to miss the opportunity here. Like, what is in front of me? And Andrew, you and I dialogued about being dads that are at home a lot more. What's one of the opportunities? Creating great memories with our kids. That's an opportunity that we have that we didn't have 3 months ago, because of Corona. And so just looking at some of those opportunities, but yeah, I think it's in that mindset and really looking at being intentional to grow that positive mindset. And so you can be a dealer of hope with the people around you.
I love it. I think that's just a great way of just reminding people that what is in front of you it's not the end of it. It's not what's forever. It's just what's in front of you at that point in time. And when it comes to this or life or business or marriage troubles or financial troubles, like it's not done. It's just one thing, but you have to look way further down the road and plan for that. We are about out of time, and I know we can keep going for hours and hours and hours. I think we'll have to have another episode of this and maybe maybe in like a month, kind of have like a round two, especially we'll see how things are going with everything going on. Give me to end the show. Give me like your favorite, a quote that you love right now. Like, what's just one quote that just sticks out to your mind right now?
One that I heard recently, and this is by a motivational speaker. He's also a pastor. His name is Eric Thomas, and you can Google Eric Thomas, and he's been called like the number one motivational speaker for professional athletes. And anyway, we got some friends of friends. I don't know him on a personal level, but Eric Thomas put up a quote the other day that I really thought was great. And he said this: you can throw your hands up in the air because you are lost and you have no options. So just kind of that hands are going up because you got nothing to do. I mean, you got no options there. Or you can put your hands up in the air and you can fight. And he said, it's a time when you're in crisis not to throw your hands in the air because you have no options or you have no way forward, but it's a chance to throw your hands up in the air and say, I'm going to fight forward and I'm going to use everything that I have, gifts, abilities, passions, opportunities, network, friends, mentors, but I'm going to put my hands up in the air, not because I'm at a loss, because I have no options. I'm going to put my hands up in the air and I'm going to fight forward. So for me, that was kind of a good one that I resonated with, that it's a time in crisis when we got to dig deep and we got to call that fight that's in us to say, I'm not going to be beat down by this circumstance around me, but I'm going to fight forward and I'm going to look at not what I don't have, but I'm going to look at what I do have and I'm going to steward well what I do have and I'm going to fight forward.
I love it. I love it. Ben, thank you. Anybody watching, I hope we brought some form of why or motivation or just thought. Even if we instigated thought in your mind, I think that's all we're trying to do, because hopefully that thought brings your own motivations or brings ideas of what you can do in your life or situation that's going on right now. If you guys don't follow Ben, make sure to follow him on Instagram. He also has a podcast. What's your podcast?
Podcast is called Rise and Lead. iTunes, Spotify, you can find Rise and Lead.
Rise and Lead podcast. Make sure to follow Ben. Thank you, Ben, for coming on. I love you like a brother. I always enjoy talking to you. I hope that you come into town after this is all blown over, because I think you're due for a trip back in town.
I think so too.
But guys, have a wonderful weekend. Thank you to all our sponsors: Empire West, Insurance Professionals of Arizona, Platinum Home Warranty, Lister Pros for producing this show, and obviously this show is brought to you by the Augustine team of People's Mortgage. This is Fueled by Why, and hopefully we can bring a little insight into helping you figure out your why in life. Have a great weekend, and we'll catch you next week.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thanks for listening. If you've enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others. Post about it on your social media or leave us a rating and review. As always, you can contact the Fueled by Why team at fueledbywhypodcast@gmail.com, and don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Fueled by Why. Thank you again to our guest, our sponsors, our production team, and to you, our loyal listeners. I'm Andrew Augustiniak, and you've been listening to Fueled by Why. See you next time.